heat up a touch, and then we'll be ready to go. So now a lot has gone on before this point. The video just started, and I start with a lot's going on. Kim wants to do Genesis Rhapsodos from Crisis Core. So I downloaded and printed the blade I could find. And it's this wispy, cool, and I'm like, that's a neat looking blade. So I printed it up, I looked at it. It's been a test for a couple of finishes lately, which is why there's black here and here. And then I watched the video with, there's only one real video with Genesis's blade in it, and that's the Sephiroth and Jill Genesis fight scene. It's a great scene. But, yeah. So I spent the next 2 months going frame by frame, redoing it, and this is this is a little closer to what I want, right? This is the one that somebody printed, and this one's fantastic. Don't get me wrong, this is absolutely fantastic. This is more accurate. There should be more pieces here that I didn't put on because it's not right. So I just stopped. And I started working on the blade, and I'm like, with foam, and to get it as thin as it needs to be, I was like, I don't like that. I don't like that at all. So now, I found a piece of wood that was the exact thickness, and I found it in my Empire of Dirt here. So what I've done is I've scribed, or drawn, all of the marks I want for everything, right? I want a 1/4 inch blade, or a 1/4 inch edge. The whole blade's going to be tapered all the way down. It doesn't have a distal taper. It's one solid piece. Comes to a point. So now we're at the point where we're going to cut the blade out to finish Genesis's sword completely. So let's start cutting. First thing I'm going to do is on my bandsaw, pull it out a bit so I can go the full length of it. I am going to cut to rough shape, the basic outline. I should get a guide for this thing. See, I was cutting foam with it earlier. But I don't have a guide. And I, of course, couldn't be bothered to make one. They're not overtly difficult. Just don't have time. I know, right? It's always you don't have time. There's always time to not have time. So, pull you in, we're going to get to cutting. Making this out of foam would have been way easier, but I think it's going to look better out of wood. So this is just going to be a prop that gets stuck on a wall. The other one, because there's going to be another one, of course, because why not, right? We're going to try playing around with some lost wax and see if we can make the entire thing out of aluminum. Because, I don't have enough hobbies to get back into lost wax casting, right? This is all going to be done, more or less, with a belt grinder. With a belt sander. It's a sander, not a grinder, because the blade moves way slower than anything else. So now I have 2 points of reference. I have the middle line here and the middle line here. So basically I want to make these 2 lines touch. Just sand the whole thing until they do. I could use a plane. I may start out with some hand tools just for fun, because it's been a while. Yeah, why not? Let's start with a plane, and we'll go from there. All right. So believe it or not, I used to be a woodworker. Like, that was my passion for a really long time. I still build furniture on occasion. For the most part, I've converted my shop over to costuming. So getting to work on a wood project is kind of nice for a change. I don't get to do it very often. I mean, I could if I wanted. But again, I gotta find time. If I switch these over to here and move this down a little bit, maybe I'll leave it full length. So I'm just trying to get this edge to this line and this edge to that line. think I'm loose. Give me a second. My whole bench just came loose. It's not one thing, it's another. Although to be honest, the day everything stops going wrong, you know, the day everything's easy, that's a terrifying thought. Strife and conflict are the only motivators, the only things that really keep us going. There we go. Good enough. You can tell I haven't used any tools in a long time. You know what? I'm done with this. I got the kind of time. It's fun to pretend. Let's get to the real tools. The thing about video game swords is they're ridiculously thick. And when it's just pixels, it's easy to do ridiculously thick. I do not have that luxury. So Genesis' sword is supposed to have a ridge along the center, right? That we are not going to get. But we're not going to get that because I would have to make this thicker than this, and it just doesn't look right. So it's not going to have that nice sharp ridge I'd like. It is what it is. I may glue a piece right there and shape it so it's got that point that I want. I'm not sure yet. I'd have to resaw this in half and use it. See how that looks. I'll be back in a minute. So this whole thing gets covered in body filler, right? Because it's getting painted, so it doesn't matter if I cheat a little bit here. See what we got. So if I glue this, I can shave the edges off a little bit and make a nice neat point. I'm gonna glue this. We'll see you in a day. Once the glue's had time to dry. I'm gonna fill this entire side. Not sure if I'm doing both sides. I know I'm doing this side. I'm using actual wood body filler. If I were doing this for a convention, I would probably do it completely different. But since this is going on a wall, it doesn't really matter. But I probably wouldn't do it too much different. So this may or may not work. If it doesn't work, just recut everything. That's kind of the thing though, isn't it? Never does work as well as you hope. The only way I can get away with this is because I'm not looking for a wooden sword. Right? This whole thing gets painted. You get a couple of interesting concepts for the edge. We're not at that point yet. Small batches. You can always add more. But if it hardens before you get to it, it's kind of a waste. Actual Bondo is horrible to work with. Body fill. Actual body fill is horrible to work with, which is why I always use glazing putty. So that's where we are. I'm going to give this time to do its thing and be back in a bit. We'll see what we're going to see. Let's see if this thing is ready to be... Oh yeah, it's definitely ready to be sanded. So let's get to it. So I forgot rule number 1 of costuming. No, that's the other club. Rule number 1 of costuming is always do your own research. Yes, the Genesis sword has a taper. So, I had it shaped, almost ready for paint, and now I have to cut it. Luckily I only did one side, So I'm just going to mark a line and then figure out how I want to cut this. So all of that needs to be cut off. I may use the bandsaw, I may use the table saw, or the radial arm saw. Not sure yet. We'll figure it out together. Hardest part now is going to be making everything symmetrical. So I'm going to cut this and be back in a minute. So in the end, the answer really was both. I used the radial arm saw to get everything started, and then I used the bandsaw to get it the rest of the way. It's really easy to get caught in that trap, that whole, I can do it this way or that way. I can do both ways. I'm not just a costumer. I do draw, I paint, you know. Speaking of painting, it's like I can only do acrylic paints. No, you can use mixed media. Clearly. You don't have to only be a digital artist. You could be a physical artist. You don't have to only be a spray paint artist. You can, you know, use multiple mediums. Same with tools. Don't get stuck in just this rut, this whole, no, this is how I do things. Branch out. Think of new things. Expand yourself as a costumer, and it does tend to expand you as a person. So, now I'm back to the point where I need to sand this edge back down. Alright, we are at the point with this thing where I like the basic shape. It's a little bit of waver here and there, but I think on a wall it's not going to make a big difference. I mean, I've got other spots, like right here where I'm not overtly happy. There's still Bondo that needs to be, you know, smooth. I'm probably going to have to go over a couple more times with the glazing putty, but we are now at the point where it's time to spray it. Just so I know exactly where my problems are. Got some weird peeling here. But as you can see, there's lots of spaces that need to be filled. So then we're going to go sand, glazing putty, sand, primer, sand, glazing putty. Here we are after a couple of rounds of primer and hand sanding. It's nice. I'm happy where it's at. I'm not worried about the back because it's getting mounted to a wall. So I think we may be one more round of sanding and priming, and I'm ready to put everything together. I am excited about this process. It is a bit cold in here, so I have moved my heater to warm up my blade while it dries. Paint wants to be nice and warm when it dries, so I'm going to do everything I can to help it. This looks fantastic. I'm very happy with it. Now we're on to the dangerous part. Now I need to paint it red. So, yeah, on with the show. Since the red is curing, we're going to take a minute to prime the rest of this. So I think that's what we're going to call it for this one. The red turned out amazing. I got a couple of interesting ideas for the blade, or for the edges. We'll get to that next time. The black, well, the handle, it's not really the black, is primed and ready to go. So in the next one, we're going to chrome this, well, going to silver it, not necessarily chrome. We're going to do a couple interesting things with the blade, and we're going to hang it up. So, we'll see you next time.